The Rake. The Rake has big eyes, razor-sharp teeth, and can run on all fours. This creature lives in the forest and hunts different animals. But if a human happens to come across the Rake, there is a possibility you can be its next target. A few years back, a fake story about the Rake made its way onto Reddit, and the post went viral. But some people have claimed to see the Rake in person.
Chupacabras. It literally means goat sucker in Spanish. This legendary creature is spotted around Latin America and in the United States. It is said to attack and drink the blood of livestock. Whoa. Do not want to mess with that. The first sighting was reported in Puerto Rico in the late 1990s. People describe this creature as 4 to 5 feet tall with large eyes, spikes down its back, and long claws. Man, nature's scary. There are pictures and videos that claim to have captured La Chupacabra. I do not want to run into that. What do you think? Do you think the Chupacabra is real or is it just a myth?
Jane the Killer. One day, both of Jane's parents were murdered by Jeff the Killer. A couple of years after the incident, the government had chosen Jane to be a test subject of a new injection called liquid hate. Jane was tricked into taking this because she was told she was getting her blood drawn. When she took liquid hate, her eyes turned black and were given abilities such as agility and shape-shifting. She now hunts down Jeff the Killer for revenge.
Terrifying urban legends that turned out to be true, Part 5. For years, the Swiss town of Maules has been terrified by a strange figure stalking the woodlands. He was described as a tall humanoid creature dressed in gimp suit with a dark gas mask that completely covered his head. Eventually, in 2013, a curious pedestrian managed to get the photo of the strange figure and shared it online. A few days later, the humanoid's clothes were found in the woodlands, followed by a note blaming the media for ruining his harmlessness.
Stoll is a small town in Kansas. It was founded in 1857, and as of today, it only has a handful of structures and people left in the town. It may seem like there's nothing to talk about, but that's far from the case. This is Stoll Cemetery. This cemetery is home to legends and strange tales. For years, stories of witchcraft, ghosts, and supernatural hauntings have surrounded this cemetery. In November of 1974, an article appeared in the University of Kansas student newspaper. It talked about the number of strange occurrences happening at the cemetery. It even talked about how the cemetery was one of 2 places where the devil actually appears twice a year. One student claimed to be grabbed by the arm from something unknown, while others spoke of unexplained memory loss. It's even said that satanic cults gather at the burned down church to do devil worshipping. But why this place? The article actually tells why. It tells of an event that happened in the 1850s. A stableman allegedly stabbed the mayor to death in an old barn on the cemetery. And years later, the barn was converted into a church that burned down. People say that in the abandoned church is a stairway that leads all the way to hell. So many people heard of this article and went to the cemetery, and the locals got annoyed. So they put a fence around the old cemetery, but this didn't work that well, because devil worshippers and trespassers still go onto the cemetery.
Alright, let's talk about Smile Dog. Smile Dog is apparently a cursed image that has been going around the internet for quite some time now. This dog apparently takes the form of a Siberian husky smiling a little too wide. It's also said if you don't spread this dog's image over the internet after seeing it, you will die. Some people have reported after not sharing the photo, the Siberian husky shapeshifts into their room as this demon dog here. This dog will sadistically torture you until you share the image, and if you don't, he will kill you. Some even say they'll see Smile Dog in the bushes, watching them as they're walking home or walking to their car. So, what do you guys think about Smile Dog and his cursed image?
Y'all seem to like my urban legend video from a little while back, so let's talk about Hell's Gate Bridge in Alabama. Hell's Gate Bridge is located in Oxford, Alabama. According to the legend, in the 1950s, a young couple was driving over the bridge, but crashed and went into the water. It is said that if you go up to this bridge and park your car, turn the lights off, one of the members out of the couple will come and visit you in your car. You won't see them, of course, but they'll leave a wet spot from the lake, river, what have you there, on your seat. Many people have also said that if you stop at the bridge and glance over your shoulder, you're going to see flames of hell. But if you are looking to take a trip to Hell's Gate Bridge, you won't be able to drive over it. It is now blocked off for safety concerns.
Late one summer night in 1953, several people in a Houston neighborhood saw a dark, shadowy figure dart across a lawn and bounce into a nearby tree. It was a man-like figure, 6.5 feet tall, with bat wings and dim gray light surrounding his body. Suddenly the light began to fade and the creature shot across the street, making a swooshing sound followed by a trail of light. The next day, one of the eyewitnesses called the police to make a report. Since then, there have been no other sightings of what is now called the Houston Batman. Around the same time, Houston was looking to expand the highways in the area. The neighborhood stood in the way of progress. Was this a way to scare residents out of the neighborhood?
Warning, you might have nightmares after this. Have you seen pictures of this two-headed dog here? It was created by a doctor named Vladimir Demikov. He wanted to learn more about the nervous system and he played an evil experiment. He even looks evil. He would detach the heads of puppies and then attach it to an adult dog. Of course, many dogs did end up dying through this surgery, but then one was successful after a heart transplant. It was this one. He did not live very long after that.
This is why you should never let your dog lick you at night. This is a story of a 10-year-old in France. She is the only daughter of a rich family. Her parents aren't usually home, so she has a dog for company. When she's sleeping, her dog is always under the bed. When she feels afraid sometimes, she let her hand under the bed and the dog licks it. Knowing that the dog is here, she feels more safe. One night, her parents were gone for a dinner, so she went to sleep as usual with her dog. But in the middle of the night, she woke up because of a noise. She heard scratching and squeaking and got afraid because of a story her father told her. As usual, she put her hand under the bed and the dog licked it. She felt safe again and fell asleep. Next morning, she couldn't find her dog. She went downstairs and she saw that something was written on the mirror. Dogs aren't the only animals that lick, and it was written in blood. Inside the kitchen, she found her dog dead in a pool of blood. When her parents found her, she was disturbed and she could only say, "Who licked me?" And according to investigations, the dog was dead since the beginning of the night. Who or what do you think licked her?
Make sure you're never mean to someone again. They could just turn into Jeff the Killer. Click the plus, drop a like, tag a friend, share with 3, or Jeff might show up at your house. Jeff and his family moved around a ton, and Jeff was always getting bullied and picked on at school. One day after school, Jeff was walking home with his younger brother, and all of a sudden gets jumped by 3 kids. Jeff ends up fighting back, but it's a little bit too late for his younger brother. His brother got badly bruised up, but other than that, they were okay. Jeff then gets an invite from one of his neighbors to a party. Jeff shows up at the party and realizes it's kind of a setup. The 3 kids he fought earlier in that week actually showed up to the party and they were looking for revenge. They get into another fight and Jeff ends up killing 2 of them. The last guy throwing bleach on him and setting Jeff on fire. Once Jeff's set on fire, he loses his mind completely. Jeff comes home later that night and is sitting in the bathroom. His mom hears him chuckling and laughing and she walks in. Seeing what Jeff did, burning off his eyelids and carving a permanent smile in his mouth, she screams and runs. Jeff decides to kill her then and there. Jeff then murders every single person in his house, including his mother, his stepfather, and his brother. It is even stated to this day that sometimes Jeff is seen in other people's houses just breaking in and seeing what's going on, and then the people just end up going missing. My question to you guys is, who should I do next?
I'm a little excited about today because we get to talk about Georgia, and the place I'm talking about is Lake Lanier. Now, the lake may seem normal, but what if I was to tell you, underneath your feet, there is a ghost town? Lake Lanier was created in 1957. The US government wanted to flood the area. Now, in order to do that, the government had to relocate 700 families and 20 cemeteries, and this included the bodies. But they never managed to get all of the grave sites. And now 60 years later, you're still swimming over these dead bodies. To make matters worse, over 600 people have died since this lake has opened. The lake is 100 feet deep. This makes searching for bodies very difficult. Legend has it, the ghost of a long-dead woman roams this lake. People have reported feeling arms underneath the water grabbing them and trying to drag them down while swimming. Even divers have reported creepy findings underneath the lake. In 2017, longtime diver Buck Buchanan reached out to social media, talked about how if you reach into the dark, you can feel an arm and a leg, but they won't move. So be careful at Lake Lanier. You may never know what you'll find.
Cartoon cat. Should I talk about it? He's another creepy creation made by Trevor Henderson. He was made in August 2018, but the original stemmed from the 1930s cartoon cat, and very similar to Felix the cat. But some people claim that they've seen him in real life, in dark hallways, and even near abandoned homes. But as once a digital designer, I can confirm that these pictures are very much photoshopped. Shh.
Iowa is home to one of the greatest unsolved mysteries. The urban legend that we're going to talk about today is more of an unsolved mystery with a paranormal twist. The Veliska Axe Murder House. The story is based on true events that took place on June 9th, 1912. The evening was going normal like every day for the Morris family. The family consisted of 2 adults and 4 children, with the youngest being 5 and the oldest being 11. One of the daughters invited some of their friends over for the night. The 2 friends agreed and slept over their house. The next day, Mary Peckman, a neighbor of the Morris family, became concerned after the Morris family didn't come outside to do their morning chores. She knocked on the door, but there was no answer, so she called over the brother of Mrs. Morris, who then opened the house. And what they found was a gruesome scene. Every member of the family and the guest were found bludgeoned to death with an axe. A killing happened when everyone was asleep and no one knew that they were being hunted one by one. A lengthy investigation yielded several suspects, but they were all found not guilty, and the crime remains unsolved. You can actually go on a tour of the house today, and the house is said to be an odd source of paranormal activity. Visitors to the house report emotional, physical, and supernatural disturbances during their overnight visits. The strangest part is that on November 7th, 2014, an amateur ghost hunter was rushed to the hospital with a self-inflicted wound. So what do you guys think? Would you stay the night at the Veliska murder house?
The Russian sleep experiment was conducted by Russian researchers in the 1940s to test the effects of sleep deprivation on World War II political prisoners. The prisoners were kept locked inside a chamber, into which the researchers fed an experimental gas-based stimulant to keep them awake. The prisoners' oxygen levels were carefully monitored, as the gas was toxic in high concentrations. The prisoners were observed using microphones and 5-inch thick glass porthole windows. The chamber was stocked with books, cots without bedding, running water, a toilet, and enough dried food to last roughly a month. The prisoners were also falsely promised that they would be freed if they submitted to the test and did not sleep for 30 days. During the first 5 days, nothing happened, although after day 4, the conversations began to get darker. From day 6, the prisoners began complaining about how they were put in that situation. They also showed signs of severe paranoia. They stopped talking to each other and instead started whispering into the microphones. They each tried to turn in the other prisoners, thinking it would endear them to the researchers. From day 9, one of the prisoners started screaming. He'd run up and down the chamber, screaming at the top of his lungs for hours on end until he lost his voice. Strangely, none of the other prisoners reacted to his behaviour. Instead, they simply continued whispering into the microphones. Soon after, a second prisoner began to scream. The non-screaming prisoners then ripped apart the books, smeared them in feces, and covered the porthole windows with them. As soon as they did that, both the screaming and the whispering stopped. That was followed by 3 days of silence. The researchers regularly checked the microphones to make sure they were still working. The oxygen consumption in the chamber indicated all 5 were still alive. On the 14th day, the researchers tried to provoke a reaction from the prisoners. On the intercom, they said they were opening the chamber door. They said, "If you move, we'll shoot you, and if you comply, one of you will be let free." One voice came back and said, "We no longer want to be free." The chamber was opened on the 15th day. As the gas left the chamber, 3 voices begged them to turn it back on. Soldiers were sent in to get the prisoners out. Only 4 of the 5 were still alive, though. No food had been eaten after day 5. There were chunks of meat from the dead prisoners' thighs and chest. They'd been stuffed into the drain in the centre of the chamber. That blocked it up, which meant there was 4 inches of water and blood in the chamber now. The surviving 4 all had muscles and skin torn away from their bodies. Their wounds appeared to be self-inflicted. Their abdominal organs had been removed. They continued to scream and begged to be left inside the chamber with the gas on. One of the Russian soldiers died, another one had his testicles ripped off, and a few of the others killed themselves in the weeks after the incident. One of the prisoners died from a ruptured spleen. The remaining 3 were taken to a medical facility. One of them died of heart failure on the operating table. The others had their surgery done without anaesthetic. They were laughing the whole time. After the surgery, one of them said to the surgeon, "Keep cutting." When asked why they want the gas again, they simply said, "I must remain awake." They were placed back inside the chamber, and when asked, "What are you?" one of them said, "We are you. We are what you hide from in your beds every night."